All right, welcome back, everybody. We are going to read the second half of Women in Aviation. So we are starting on page 50 of your student textbook. So again, page 50 of your student textbook. And if you need to pause the video and grab that and get ready real quick, that is fine. We are going to get started with, not chapter. I'm all forged by fire mode. We are on paragraph 11. Coleman had also read about Eugene Jacques Bullard, the well-decorated and highly honored native of Georgia, who had become the first African American to fly an airplane in combat as a member of the French Lafayette Flying Corps during World War I. Other blacks had gone to Europe to get their training too. Coleman realized that if she were ever going to get a chance to fly, she too would have to go to France. But she didn't have any money to get there, and besides, she couldn't speak a word of French. For almost 2 years, Coleman worked part-time as a manicurist and as a server in a Chicago chili parlor, and saved every penny to finance her trip to France. Meanwhile, she learned to speak French, so when the time came, she'd be able to understand her instructors. All right, so let's stop and let's cite evidence and evaluate details over here to the side. So annotate. In paragraph 11, mark details that describe Coleman's dream at this point in her life. Then in paragraph 12, mark her plans for making that dream a reality. So in 11, you're going to mark what her dream is, and then in paragraph 12, you're going to mark how she's working to attain that dream. Okay, and then go ahead and draw conclusions. So based on this evidence, what can you conclude about Coleman and her dream? What can you assume about her? Which text detail would you cite as being most important to that conclusion? So tell me what you think about her and her dream, and then tell me what detail made you think that the most. Okay, so go ahead and pause and get that taken care of. All right, paragraph 13. In 1921, Coleman made it to France, where she found an instructor who was one of Tony Fokker's chief pilots. Fokker, the famous aircraft manufacturer, said Coleman was a natural talent. On June 15, 1921, Coleman made history by becoming the first black woman to earn her wings, thus joining the ranks of the handful of American women flyers. Returning to the United States, determined to start a flying school where other African American pilots could be trained, Coleman looked for ways to finance her dream. There were very few jobs in the aviation industry for women or blacks. She soon learned that there was little or no support for a black woman who wanted to start a flying school. To call attention to aviation and to encourage other women and African Americans to take part in the new and growing field, Coleman gave flying exhibitions, which are presentations or shows, and lectured on aviation. She thrilled audiences with daredevil maneuvers, just as Quimby had done before her. All right, so let's go ahead and handle this determine author's purpose. So annotate. Underline the problem that the authors introduced in paragraph 14. Then circle the way that Coleman tries to solve it. And you can underline and circle, or you can use highlighter and pen, just a way to kind of differentiate that to let you know the difference, okay? And then go ahead and do critique 2. Are these facts effective in supporting the author's purpose? So we kind of had a thought about what our author's purpose might be after reading paragraph 1. And now, are these things going along with what you thought originally, or do you kind of maybe need to change your idea a little bit? Okay, so kind of think about that and go ahead and pause and handle it. All right, picking up with paragraph 15. Along with racism, Coleman encountered the burden of sexism. She made believers out of those who doubted her skill. The color of my skin, she said, was a drawback at first. I was a curiosity, but soon the public discovered I could really fly. Then they came to see Brave Betsy, as they called me. The strict rules and regulations that govern aviation today didn't exist during the first 3 decades of flying. For example, it wasn't uncommon for aviators to ignore safety belts and fly without parachutes. One of these simple safety precautions, an action taken to avoid possible danger, might have saved the lives of both Harriet Quimby and Bessie Coleman. So here we have a picture of Harriet Quimby in 1912, and she's holding the propeller to start the engine of her monoplane. And she becomes the first woman to fly across the English Channel. So that's a picture of Harriet Quimby. All right, paragraph 17. On a July morning in 1912, Quimby and a passenger named William P. Willard set out to break an over-water speed record. When Quimby climbed to 5,000 feet, the French-made Blériot monoplane, I'm not sure on the pronunciation of that, suddenly nosed down. Both Quimby and Willard were thrown from the plane and plunged to their deaths in the Boston harbor. The New York Sun used the opportunity to speak out against women flyers. Miss Quimby is the 5th woman in the world killed while operating an aeroplane. 3 were students, and their number thus far is 5 too many. The sport is not one for which women are physically qualified. As a rule, they lack strength and presence of mind and the courage to excel as aviators. It is essentially a man's sport and pastime. So, first of all, during this time period, it's considered more of a sport, like football or soccer or something like that, something that you would do as a hobby in your free time. And second of all, we know that this is an excerpt from the New York Sun newspaper because of the way that it's written here. It is a long quotation, so it's kind of on its own. There's a space here and a space here, and we just have the quotation. So this is a direct quote from this article in the New York Sun. All right, so over here on language conventions, go ahead and do annotate and critique. So mark the present tense verbs in this quotation. So how do we know it's present tense? Where do you see that? And then critique. We usually use past tense verbs to talk about past events. So why is the present tense appropriate here? Why is this little section in present tense? And I might have given you a hint, so pay attention. All right, go ahead and pause if you didn't. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. All right, picking up with paragraph 19. 14 years later, Bessie Coleman died in a similar accident. With almost enough savings to start her school, Coleman agreed to do an air show in Florida on May Day for the Negro Welfare League of Jacksonville. At 7:30 p.m. the night before, Coleman accompanied by her publicity agent, William Wills, took her plane up for a test flight. When she reached an altitude of about 5,000 feet, her plane flipped over. Coleman was thrown from the plane and plunged to her death April 30th, 1926. Wills died seconds later when the plane crashed. Once again, critics used the tragedy to assert that neither women nor blacks were mentally or physically able to be good pilots. Women are often penalized by publicity for their every mishap, said Amelia Earhart, the most famous female pilot in aviation history. The result is that such emphasis sometimes directly affects a woman's chances for a flying job, Earhart continued. I had one manufacturer tell me that he couldn't risk hiring women pilots because of the way accidents, even minor ones, became headlines in the newspapers. All right, so over here, determine author's purpose. So go ahead and annotate, mark the text that gives the name and description of the person whom the authors quote in paragraph 20. So tell us about who said the quote and their description, and then connect. What purpose does this quotation serve in the paragraph? How does it relate to the overall purpose of the selection? So is it informing you? Is it entertaining you? What's it doing? How is it contributing to the author's purpose? So go ahead and pause. All right, picking up with paragraph 21. Although Bessie Coleman died tragically, her plans to open a flight training school for blacks were continued by those she had inspired. All right, and that's it. So sad ending for Bessie Coleman, but some people picked up her dream and ran with it, and they continued with her dream of making a flight school for African Americans. So go ahead and do this next part. You don't have to keep on watching the video, so do check your understanding and be sure to submit on Canvas.